Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Ken Veltman, Vice President, Public Affairs and Sustainability for the Prince Rupert Port Authority and a former PG guy. Ken.
Thanks, Kevin. And a thank you to the Klekle for the warm welcome to their Tory. I bring greetings from the territory of the Simalyak-speaking people and Tsimshian people in whose traditional lands and waters the Port of Prince Rupert operates. We're pleased to be a sponsor. We consider the BC Natural Resource Forum the premier event in the province for us to be attending. And we're very proud to have been a sponsor and a participant for the better part of its history. I have the honor today to make an introduction to our keynote speaker. But quickly before we do, I know a number of you were here for the previous panel on economic development that also featured our CEO, Sean Stevenson, and heard a little bit more about what's going on at the port. But just to note that the Port of Prince Rupert, of course, we're an instrument of trade, not just transportation. Natural resource sectors, what makes them so important is because they underline our trade agenda. And that's where that match really is. We're proud to play a major role in growing and diversifying, and I would underline diversifying right now, our markets. And certainly that brings us benefits today, but will also be just as important into the future. And we certainly heard about that from Premier Eby last night. The future of the Port of Prince Rupert is bright. With our partners, many of those who are here today, AltaGas, Vopak, Trigon, DP World, Drax, CN, and there are many others that I won't go through the whole list, are underlining the largest period of capital expansion in the Port of Prince Rupert's history. We have almost $3 billion that's currently under construction that are increasing capacity and increasing capability for exports from northern BC and indeed all of Western Canada. Forestry, mining, agriculture, petrochemical products, LPGs, other liquids, and other forms of energy. We're adding options, we're adding competitiveness, and at the end of the day, we're adding value. I would encourage all of you to, if you haven't already, please visit us at our booth at the entrance to the conference center. But I would also encourage you, we're running an initiative right now that's really a northern BC engagement on future expansion of the trade corridor through our communities and regions. We're hosting a drop-in open house at the coast this afternoon between 2:30 and 5, so I would encourage you to drop into that when you do have a moment and engage with our staff there. But you know, the northwest region of this province has been the focus of some major private sector investment over the last few years, and in particular in the energy export sector. And certainly the headliner to that has been the investment into LNG Canada in Kitimat and its associated elements. It gives me great pleasure today, and I hope you will join me in welcoming Jason Klein, the CEO of LNG Canada.
Okay. Can you hear me, everyone? Yes. Good to see everybody out there today. I'm Bryan Cox, General Manager of External Affairs with PETRONAS Canada. It's a real pleasure to be here with my friend Jason Klein as his favorite JV partner in the LNG Canada project. I think PETRONAS is. Folks, we're at a pivotal time. I know you all know that. I know that you all know that the history books are being written right now by the actions that we're all taking in this room. And there's many headwinds out there. There's many pathways that we're all looking to go down, and there's scorpions under a lot of those rocks as we all do our work. And I was thinking as we were coming to this dialogue today, it was 5 years ago that I was up on this stage talking about a concept called yes and. And I know a lot of you heard me talk about that several years ago, but from some of you that don't know, yes and is something that comes from improv comedy. And it's a concept that's used to keep people's minds open to be creative. And it's something that's been led to amazing improv comedy over the years, but it's a concept that's increasingly being used in business settings because it allows minds to keep open, and the "and" part of it allows solutions to come. And I was thinking to myself, in those 5 years since I was up on the stage, we have not been having a lot of yes-and conversations in this country at all, have we? But that's okay, because there's been beacons of hope and beacons of light out there like this project. And I think what Jason and I really have an opportunity to talk to you today about is a template of a yes-and project, because that's what LNG Canada is. When you look at what's occurred since 2018 when this project went to final investment decision, I don't think there's been more change in a 7-year period in human history. There's, we can argue through that, but there's been a lot of change out there. And this project has continued to proceed, and we're now at this pivotal moment where we're about to forward face to the world with our LNG opportunity at a time when energy exports are pretty darn important. And so, I think this is an incredible moment in time that we really want to unpack a little bit more for you today and talk about really the realities of what's happening in the world out there, because one of the things that hasn't changed in the world is the need for reliable, affordable energy. And this is a project that's going to provide it, and this country and this province can do more. So before we get into the dialogue, we really wanted to show you a video that kind of gives you some of the highlights of what's occurred on this project over the last 7 years. So let's see it. Yeah. This is to be celebrated. This is a moment to celebrate this project. And so, Jason, it's great to be here having this dialogue with you today. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about where LNG Canada is at, what we can expect over the next few months at this very exciting time for the project.
Thanks for that, Brian. First of all, I'd like to say what a privilege it is to be back here in Prince George for another BC Natural Resources Forum. I want to thank the mayor for putting on much better weather this year than last year. It's a big improvement. Thanks back there, Simon. It's been an amazing couple of years, and 2025 is really going to be the pinnacle of that. Watching the video just reminds me of what we achieved. The first time I went to Kitimat was in 2016, and I got a tour of the site, which could best be described as a forest with a lot of creeks running through it, and in the old Methanex facility. And to see how far we've come in that time is tremendous. I'm really excited to say that we are still on track to deliver the first made in BC Canadian LNG to the world by the middle of this year, which is what we promised back in 2018.
All right.
but it has been an enormous effort of so many people. We've had over 40,000 Canadians work on our site since we started construction. That's in addition to the more than 25,000 people who worked on the Coastal GasLink project that supplies gas to our site. So 65,000 Canadians have worked on this project. And it's hard to imagine any other projects that's had so many people working across it. We are thrilled and honored to be building our project in the Haisla Nation's traditional territory. They are our partners, our friends, our colleagues, and our neighbors. We have, in the last year, recruited and trained up our operations staff who live in Kitimat Terrace and are part of the community and will operate this facility for the next 40 years. We've seen a number of big milestones in just the last couple of months. You know, as we sit here today in Prince George, gas is flowing from the Montney 700 kilometers down the Coastal GasLink pipeline to the Douglas Channel. We're processing that gas in our plant as we speak. We're commissioning and testing a lot of different systems. Our flare is running. I ran into Ellis Ross this morning. He and many others refer to it as the Eye of Sauron. For me, the flare is really helpful. It's my weather indicator in the morning. When you get in your car in the morning in Kitimat, if you can see the flare, because it's dark outside when I go to work, if you can see the flare, it's going to be a nice, clear day. If you see a bit of a glow, it's going to be a foggy day. And if you can't see the flare, it is just going to be a miserable, cloudy, weathery day. So I think of it as like a weather balloon kind of for Kitimat. But we are processing gas in the plant now. We're getting systems up and running. We took delivery of the 5 high-sea tugs, the world's greenest tug fleet as far as I'm concerned, there in Kitimat, a joint venture between the Haisla Nation and C-SPAN. I was privileged to attend the FID celebration for Cedar LNG, the world's first indigenous majority-owned LNG project there in the Kitimat Village earlier this summer. Of course, we continue to work with our 5 joint venture partners, including my favorite, PETRONAS, Shell as well, because they pay my bills. We continue to make progress on phase 2 and the conditions necessary to make, a further investment in phase 2. We are continuing to engage and consult in the community, both First Nations and the local communities in Kitimat and Terrace, so they know what's happening on their land, they know what's happening in the waters, and they know before it happens. And that community engagement is really so critical to everything we're doing. And then finally, as many of you know, I will be ending my 3 years as LNG Canada CEO in April of this year and returning to Shell and ultimately moving back with my family to Houston. This is probably the only place in the energy business where I have to clarify. That's Houston, Texas. Everywhere else, that's pretty clear. But I'm really pleased that Chris Cooper, who's been leading our phase 2 and pipeline efforts the last several years on my team, will be taking over. I have great confidence in him and know he's going to take this project to steady operations and hopefully to a positive FID on phase 2.
That's excellent. Thank you. There's a lot to unpack out of what you just said, but I don't know if everyone just heard what Jason said around about 65,000 people working on the facility and the pipeline. That is incredible. The number of Canadians, British Columbians and Canadians that have touched this project. And that's the reason why this project has proceeded, because Canadians put their shoulders to the wheel and built it. We can build big things in this country. This is evidence of that. Now it's time to build some more. But maybe, Jason, it's a good opportunity to talk about where LNG Canada fits into the LNG market now. I mean, a lot has happened since 2018, since final investment decision. We've talked a lot about how the United States has come right into the game and become the largest LNG producer, exporter in the world in a short time frame. What differentiates LNG Canada? Where does it stand in the world market? And maybe talk a little bit about the world market right now, too.
Yeah, so LNG Canada, and the same applies to all the other LNG projects proposed or being built here in Canada, has a couple of unique advantages. First are the abundant and low-cost resources of the Western Canadian Basin. And you need not look any further than the AECO Henry Hub spread to realize we have way more gas than Canada could possibly use on its own. and that's a huge advantage. We also have a much better access to Asia from the West Coast. Asia is the growth market for LNG longer term, and to get a cargo from Kitimat to Tokyo or China or Korea is half the distance of going from the US Gulf Coast, and you don't have to go through the Panama Canal, which is increasingly expensive and congested, although maybe President Trump will do something about that. That's on his list. Canada also has an advantaged climate. An LNG plant is basically a really, really sophisticated and very expensive refrigerator. And if you're going to run a refrigerator outside, it's easier and more efficient to do that in Canada than in the US Gulf Coast or the Middle East. We also have the benefit of BC Hydro providing us a lot of renewable power, which keeps our emissions down. LNG Canada will be the lowest GHG intensity LNG produced at any major facility anywhere in the world when we start up this year. We're 35% lower GHG intensity than the best in class, 60% lower than the global average. We also have really strong support of all the First Nations that we engage with, from Terrace all the way through Kitimat and down the Douglas Channel. Really supportive communities in Terrace and Kitimat. An increasingly well-trained and ready and able workforce. Obviously, the incredible support of the 60,000 people plus who have worked on the site and on the pipeline, and the labor unions who've been so helpful for us in helping us deliver. And all of these things benefit us. And all of those conditions should hopefully support Cedar, Silissums, LNG Canada Phase 2, and all the other projects that come behind us.
Great. Maybe a little bit about the market that the LNG will be going to, and sort of what are those market realities right now that we're seeing globally? How much, is there more room for LNG from Canada?
There absolutely is. So a couple of things have happened since 2018. One, the Russian invasion of Ukraine did change global gas markets, and importing countries are more acutely aware of the need for diverse and secure and reliable energy sources. But today, countries like Japan are still importing Russian LNG because they need to keep the lights on. We have the opportunity to displace that. But there's also just a role for natural gas and LNG in the energy transition that cannot be ignored. In 2024, the world consumed more coal than any year in human history. We have not hit peak coal yet. People are building new coal-fired power plants, primarily in Asia, which is right where we're positioned to supply them with LNG that has such a better GHG footprint. So we can do good things for the Canadian economy, while at the same time doing good things for the global climate.
Absolutely. Jason, you think about the government put in conditions in 2018 for LNG development. There was 5 of them. I'm sure people are aware of them around benefits to communities, Indigenous communities, revenue to the province, and a couple of other ones. Can you talk a little bit about how you met those, how you went about meeting them? And really, I think it's a demonstration of yes and in action, because those 5 conditions from the province were, I think I know LNG Canada met them with that yes and mentality. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think it lays a blueprint for how you deliver major projects in Canada, particularly here in BC. So we've talked about the 40,000 good jobs in construction on our site. We've talked about bringing on the operating staff who are going to run this facility. In terms of workforce development, we've engaged on apprentice programs, on training programs. We've partnered with people like BCIT, Coast Mountain College, to train up a whole new industry of people. And we spent so far $5 million on workforce development, and that's trained up a lot of people who have come and started working on our site. But it's also trained up people who are going to work at Cedar and Silissums and others. And I'm not naive. We're the first LNG project in Canada. We will get people poached from us that we train up who go on to develop and support some of these other projects, and that's great. In terms of environmental awareness and sensitivity, we have, as I said, designed the lowest GHG intensity facility on the planet. That is, at least at this scale. That's helped by BC Hydro providing us clean power. It's helped by us running really efficient aeroderivative gas turbines. We've also undertaken the largest fisheries offset in Canadian history. We've had a 55-hectare fisheries offsets that are developed. The fish are going in those every year now. The bears are coming and eating the fish, which makes for great site tours, by the way. We've got a 70-hectare offset and conservation program for wetlands, really making sure we're doing right by the environment that we're in and the community that we're in. We work so closely with the First Nations that are engaged with us, and the procurement, should have mentioned earlier, we've awarded, in terms of impact, $5 billion to BC businesses in contracts and procurement. And of that,
Amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
and of that $5 billion, over $4 billion is with local and Indigenous-owned businesses in Northwest BC. And the opportunities that all the nations and the communities have gotten from that is just tremendous. And we'll probably talk about my favorite tugboats later. And of course, the opportunity for BC for revenues, not only from the taxes that we'll pay when we're up and running, but also the uplift in royalties and the uplift in gas production that you're going to see across BC, which is material. So these are the things and the partnerships that you need to do here, and it is a win-win-win. And yes, and.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about that, you think about the billions of dollars that have been invested in this project, you just touched on it, there's billions more over the next decades from the upstream royalties for this project. This is literally providing prosperity for this province and for this country for decades to come. And it's a massive story we should celebrate. Jason, maybe we can dig into the Indigenous partnerships. I think that it's fair to say that LNG Canada in many ways have transcended how projects engage with Indigenous communities and how partnerships are built. I think we've seen a lot of that come from Cedar LNG and to Silisms. You've really set the bar and now raised it for that. Maybe talk about a little bit about that. There's so many wonderful, rich stories that you could.
Well, thanks, Brian. I think a lot of credit goes to the people that came before me, way before FID, rather than just coming into a community and saying, hey, we're going to build an LNG plant over here. What do you think? We listened and we engaged and we consulted across all of the communities to understand what were their desires, what were their fears, what were their needs. And then we designed our facility and our ways of working and how we're going to build it to address those. And we made a lot of promises about how we were going to do that. And I always say, my predecessors made a lot of promises after doing a lot of listening. My job is to make sure we fulfill those promises and to continue listening. And we've done that over the years. Cedar LNG is obviously a fantastic example of how we've partnered and supported. The High Sea, which is the joint venture between the Haisla and Vancouver-based Seaspan that operates our tugs, 3 fully electric tugs, 2 battery-operated tugs. This is an amazing fleet, world-leading, literally award-winning. But it's not just about the tugs. It's about the jobs and the careers. And we've been able, and the High Sea has been able to recruit so many people back into Kitimat, people who left Kitimat or Terrace because they couldn't get jobs. They moved to the Lower Mainland, and they're coming back. They're coming back because we've got great jobs available now in the community. And one of my favorite anecdotes, when one of those first tugs sailed into Kitimat late last year, on board that tug were 3 generations of seafarers from one Haisla family who were working as deckhands on that boat. And that is just an amazing opportunity for the community.
Amazing, amazing. We're running a bit short of time, so maybe one last question to you, Jason, around your reflections on your time with the project. I think a big thank you is owed to you, Jason, for your leadership on this project and the leadership of your team and everyone involved with this. So a big thank you from all of us to you, first and foremost, for spearheading and leading this project to where we're at today. I think we'd all really value some reflections from you from a personal perspective, and maybe to all of us as a challenge on what can we do to keep advancing this LNG opportunity and get more in the window and get more reliable energy to the world.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bryan. I mean, it is very bittersweet for me to leave Canada and to leave LNG Canada, but I leave with an enormous amount of pride. My family has been very generous in supporting my career. We've lived in 5 countries on 4 continents in the last 15 years, and I committed to them that we would move back to Texas before my son started high school, so I think I better honor that commitment. I think my wife was clear that they're going with or without me, so I decided to go with them. You know, I've had the privilege of working on LNG projects all over the world, and I'm proud of all the projects I've worked on, but this is different. What we have done here as an industry is unlike any other LNG project anywhere in the world. The partnerships with First Nations, the engagement of communities, the creation of jobs that are bringing people back to communities they left, the creation of a whole new industry, and the way that we're doing it is really unmatched. And I will leave here proud of not only, you know, having led a team that's built this amazing LNG facility, but proud of having a small role in reconciliation and building relationships with friends and colleagues and neighbors that will last a lifetime. And the way that we deliver projects here in Canada, particularly in BC, is setting an example for the world. And I think we've shown you can do it. We can do it successfully. We can do it in a way that lifts up communities and nations in a way that is great for everyone involved. Couldn't be more proud.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. I think that's it for us. Thank you very much to Jason for your thoughts and leadership on the project. And you know what I'd like to leave you with is we can build big things in this country. We just did it. We can do more, and it's up to all of us in this room. So thanks for the time.
Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you both very much. Logan's got a thank you gift, and I would invite Kevin O'Donnell, Executive Director, Pipeline Contractors Association of Canada, to come up and thank you as well. Kevin, did I mention I really like your first name? Come on, let's hear it for another Kevin.
Well done, Kevin. Well done. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. So good afternoon. My name, as mentioned, is Kevin O'Donnell, and I represent the Pipeline Contractors Association of Canada, as well as the Canadian Pipeline Advisory Council. So I do have the pleasure of thanking our keynote speaker today, Mr. Jason Klein. Jason, thank you. Thank you for your insights and optimism today. Always positive energy, no pun intended, when you're in the room. So thank you again, Jason. Our delegates, our industry, and our country, thank you for your commitment and leadership on Canada's largest ever private sector investment project. That is something that you cannot say very often and probably never again for a generation. So thank you very much. So it must be, you know, hugely fulfilling to have brought LNG Canada project phase 1 construction and to have first cargo in sight. So again, congratulations on that milestone. So before I leave, and this is very important, I want to personally thank you on behalf of our union craft workers, for it was your project that facilitated over 12 million worker hours for our members on the CGL line. So that in itself is generational. So thank you again. So finally, I'm going to say thank you and all the best on your return home to Houston. Thank you, Jason.